morning. This is Ryan Whitaker along with Nathan Goebel and Brian Dallin with a short market update here on December 19th, 2024. I'm going to start off by just talking some local basis values and kind of what we're seeing here in the FS grain territory. December has been a really busy month with trucks everywhere. River logistics have been a little struggling right now as far as getting barges back up to the north here. So we've seen some long lines there. Basis values on the river, we've seen breaks since they spread to the March, but looks like going forward through the spring, we are going to see, we're starting to see some positive values February through May. So good opportunity to be locking in some basis. With that being said, spreads are also coming in, corn and beans. So if you want to stay in the market, definitely write a basis contract versus deferred with the way the spreads are looking today. Local ethanol, it's nothing exciting really. I mean, you're looking at pretty much what, they're following the river pretty closely. There's enough corn moving, so they're not having to reach out too far to fill their positions. And BN rail, pretty soft as we speak today. There's plenty of corn in the west, so we're not loading a ton of trains at this point. Going forward, possibly we see that get a little bit better if the PNW pops its head up and starts pulling corn from the west, and then we'll have to start sourcing some corn back out of Illinois. As far as the east goes, those values are pretty competitive with the river. The east had a little bit shorter of a crop, down in the Carolinas. So we are seeing some movement over in that area. But like I said, going forward, keep moving corn. Basis values are good. Spreads are fairly narrow. That's all I have for right now. And I'm going to turn it over to Nathan Goebel.
Thank you, Ryan. So I'll just give a quick update here on the WASDE's last post. Here in December, we had some good news on the corn side. They increased the demand on exports up 150, along with ethanol up 50, helping pour our ending stocks down. Here today, they're posting a 1.7 for corn in the U.S. ending stocks, while, you look back to September, you're looking closer to a 2 out there. So the demand has ticked up. We're still battering a large supply here in the U.S., although we are working through it. On the word market there, you're still looking in that word ending stocks hanging around between the 300 area, which has been consistent since about, 2016. Thing to keep an eye on the word market is South America's production down there. They've had a heck of a start to the growing season this year. The safrinha crop will be one to watch because that's their main export. Onto the bean market there. There wasn't any big change in this report for beans. You're still looking at a 470 ending stock there. I mean, comparing that back to September, we are down. You were looking at 550 there ending stock. So we have chewed through a little bit, but still have plenty of supplies here in the U.S. I mean, you're still looking north of a 10% stock to use ratio. And unfortunately for us, the bigger story is not local, but actually on the world market there. So South America has had a phenomenal start to their growing year. I mean, projections out there, you've been hearing this last word stock. Let's see here. I mean, for them, their last projection was of 170 million metric tons from a couple private groups. And unfortunately, that just has us beat here in the U.S. when they turn it on in February there. I mean, we are battering against also a record word ending stocks out there with the 131 million metric ton posted at the moment. So that's where we need to keep an eye on going forwards. Maybe we might have some demand change to help pick it up and eat through a little bit more. Be definitely beneficial for us here locally.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, Nate, it sounds like on the corn market, we've trimmed things back a little bit to where we may have some potential upside there in the corn market. But on beans, sounds like if we get any pops here over the next 3 months, we ought to be awful aggressive in cleaning up any old crop and maybe getting started on new crop sales too.
Absolutely. Brian couldn't have summed it up any better.
All right. Well, I'll wrap things up here today. The last 24 hours, it seems like the topic of choice for anybody has been all the talk coming out of Washington on the continuing resolution bill they're trying to get pushed through. So I am by no means an expert in any of this, just trying to gather the information as best I can. But the main underarching deal here is that at midnight on Friday, is when the deadline is for the government to either pass a new spending bill or we're going to have a potential government shutdown, which I feel like we've talked about and had potential for 10 times in the last 2 years. The government continues to struggle to agree on what our budget needs to be. However, with that deadline looming, there were a few highlights in a continuing resolution that was put forward yesterday to go toward the House. So the main highlight is in that continuing resolution, there is disaster aid in the form of just over $100 billion. Of that 100 billion, they have 31 billion total earmarked for the ag sector. 21 billion of that would be in disaster aid for farmers, ranchers, livestock producers, and that would be given in different forms and shapes depending on what programs they put it into. Of the 31 billion I mentioned, there's 10 billion that is potentially earmarked in flat direct payments to farmers. We've had this happen before. If you go back a few years, it sounds like the $10 billion they're talking about this time could be in the form of $43 an acre on corn, $30 an acre on beans, and $32 an acre on wheat acres. If you had preventative plant, you'd be eligible for 50% of that payment. But it could be, a fairly significant dollar amount. These payments, in theory, are to be made or distributed within 90 days of passing this bill. So if they're able to pass this before Friday at midnight, sometime in the next 3 months, we would expect those payments to be pushed out to the farmers. There is an upside limit similar to before. However, they've lowered that. It used to be $175,000 max per entity or individual. Now it's $125,000 max per entity or individual, unless you're one of the larger operations, and there's a math problem on that where there would be a higher limit on it. But that's kind of the highlights in the direct payments. Also, they're talking about a 1-year extension of the current 2018 Farm Bill. Not a lot here. Really, what they're saying is any programs that were enacted in the 2018 Farm Bill, they would continue these over the next year. So there's still dollars within that program that have not been pushed out in various shapes or forms that they would be able to have access to for the next year. And then the last main thing was the approval for year-round sales of E15 fuel. So currently, there is a limit on sales during the summer. However, I did learn that there's already 8 states in the Corn Belt that have been approved for year-round sales prior to this in the past year. So the main states in the Corn Belt already are able to sell E15 year-round. What this is doing is saying that any state would be eligible now to sell E15 year-round. So in theory, that should mean good thing for domestic demand, but we still have to remember at the end of the day, ethanol is kind of a small piece of the gasoline usage in the United States. There's only like 3,500 pumps in the U.S. still that sell E15. So, there's a lot of logistics in how we would move the needle being able to sell year round. At the end of the day, it's still a positive thing, but I'm not sure it'll be more than a drop in the bucket in the big scheme of things. So again, the deadline on this is midnight. I believe once approved, the continuing resolution would go to the House, takes a 2/3 majority to pass that. Then it would have to go to the Senate. Then it would have to get a majority vote in the Senate. All of this before Friday at midnight. And again, I don't know much about the government. I just know they move slowly and they usually disagree on everything. So this is far from approved, but certainly something we want to keep our eyes on as we go toward the end of the week before Christmas here. So I guess that'll wrap up our video here today. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your FS Grain representative, and we'd be more than happy to discuss things with you. Thanks again.